The Suicide Squad is directed by James Gunn and brings back some very familiar faces while introducing us to some new ones. But where does it lie in terms of the previous Suicide Squad movie and in terms of the DC universe as a whole? Well, apparently it's not a sequel or a reboot, it's just basically James Gunn's version of the Suicide Squad. So it's like a standalone film where we have these characters like Idris Elba's Bloodsport, John Cena's Peacemaker, Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn, and many more. And quite similar to the story of the first Suicide Squad movie, the government sends all these supervillains on a very dangerous task, a suicide mission, where if they don't cooperate, they die. However, this time there's a much bigger task at hand. And with an official R rating. And oh man, does it do that rating right. Now, I don't remember too much about what I thought of the first Suicide Squad movie back when I watched it in theaters when it came out in 2016, other than I really didn't mind it. But then again, I was pretty forgiving with movies back in the day, so I decided to rewatch it, and upon revisiting it, I found myself actually having a decent time with it. Sure, it's not perfect. I found the weak link to be the villains, Enchantress and her brother. They were basically missing for the majority of the movie and weren't really that interesting. And the fact is, we have all of these characters, yet very little backstory for most of them, which, would have been better if there was a lot more elaboration, but wasn't that big of a cause for concern, as we learn a lot about the characters throughout them being together in the movie. It did have some great character building moments, like that bar scene. But the movie definitely could have been a lot better, and I guess that's where most fans could be coming from, that it's wasted potential, and I definitely don't disagree there. Most of that movie was like talking and explaining stuff. This new Suicide Squad movie, on the other hand, it was a lot more entertaining. For the most part, because I didn't completely feel this way until after I finished watching the entire movie. First off, a key thing to note going into this movie is not to get too attached to the characters. A lot of characters in this movie are just throwaways, but it makes sense since this movie is about the Suicide Squad. And I found this movie to stay a lot truer to its name than the previous one did, and I mean, that's what the Suicide Squad movie should be about, You know what, this movie reminds me so much of Deadpool in a way, where it's just like very entertaining and dumb, gory fun. They really don't hold back with the graphic details in this one. And this is a film that, it knows exactly what it wants to be. Although it's definitely not perfect. While watching it, I still found it to share some of the same flaws from the first movie. Like the first Suicide Squad movie, you're kind of thrown into this one with a bunch of characters you really don't know anything about, so it's very hard to care for them initially. Sure, towards the end you care about them a lot more because you learn a lot more about their backstories along the way, but when it was just like around the middle of the movie, it just felt very stagnant and didn't have any emotion or sense of urgency. Like, what were they even trying to do in the grand scheme of things? Kind of forgot. And I guess that was also at the point where Harley Quinn, arguably the most entertaining character of the squad, was just missing from the group, and it just felt like there was no chemistry within that new group. With all these newly introduced characters, unlike the first film where I felt the characters ended up bonding a lot better. That's not to say I wasn't entertained by them. There were a lot of funny moments with the members of the new Suicide Squad, sure, but I just didn't care for them that much. Like if you compare Idris Elba's Bloodsport against Will Smith's Deadshot, both have daughters, but Deadshot's relationship with his daughter felt a lot more emotionally impactful. Now, when I said the villains in the first Suicide Squad movie were bad, at this point in time, this movie felt almost as bad or worse, because I was like, where was the villain? There really wasn't a clear villain until the last 20 or 30 minutes or so of the movie. And since this is a standalone film, there really isn't any mentions of the events of the first Suicide Squad, of Birds of Prey, and it relates a lot less to the DC universe as a whole, because other important characters in the DC universe that were present in the first movie weren't in this one. I'm not going to say who though, but you probably already know who I'm talking about if you have seen this movie, that is. So at this point in time, I was like to myself, I don't see any improvements on the first movie, other than the fact that it's R-rated and it relates a lot less to the DC universe than the first one. So I thought to myself, did they really need to make this movie? But with that being said, the third arc changed everything. Oh, it was just beautiful. That's the best way to describe it. It was worth the long, tedious wait. The story, the characters, everything that they've been working for up to this point made sense, and it was probably one of the best parts or one of the best things I've seen in a film this whole year so far. It's just glorious and kind of emotional in a way as well, and was a great way to kind of end this movie on a bang. Sure, it was sad that this movie was kind of missing a villain for the majority of its time until the third arc, but it did make for some pretty unpredictable twists and turns. At least for someone like me who hasn't really read the comics before. This is why I said I didn't feel the way I do now until after I watched the whole movie. But even though like the final arc of the movie was amazing and what I wanted to see, that still doesn't help what I thought about the other parts of the movie, more specifically around the middle, although it does bump up my grade quite a bit. Also, did anyone just hate this one lady in this movie that was in the first movie as well? Like the one that was controlling all these guys, who could just blow off their heads at any second or any given time? Like, God, she was just such an arsehole. I'm glad about what ended up happening to her in this movie. I'm going to give the Suicide Squad a B+. Still not good enough to deserve an A grade rating, but was definitely worth the watch. And I mean, right before my city is going to head to lockdown for the 6th time. God fucking damn it. But anyway guys, thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you think down below. Like and sub if you enjoyed, and as always, feel free to check out my previous videos. Until next time.